Hi, I'm Dr. Keith Johnson, and I'm reading from my book. I know where I've been, I'm just not sure where I'm going. I'm reading the passage, Sometimes We Just Need to Write. It's in my foreword of this book. Let me get my glasses. I'm going to need them to see them. We all live through passages of time, and with those passages, our perspective often changes, one would hope, for the better. When I was in seminary, I thought I would carry the message of Christ and literally save the world. This same thinking caused me to take this message into my writings, hoping to the printed word and hope that they would find the same kind of help that I've found in him. This is not my first attempt at writing. I've actually had 3 books published, 4 now, and written several articles for both newspaper and magazines. I don't even know if authors have felt the same burden, but the books I wrote were specifically serious and mostly theological. My first book told of my street ministry and was an account of how God directed me in working with and sheltering the homeless. There are many things I learned from that ministry, including the great need of any city to take care of their homeless, who, even though unseen by so many of the town's inhabitants, and innumerable in great need. Anyone looking for a reason to serve God only need open their home and shelter to people who have no place to live, although I must admit, that's a hard way to go. Their house will be filled with people and schedules act with ministerial responsibility, serving those people. And if you just look around your neighbors, you'll probably find a reason to serve God. While teaching seminary, whenever I was approached by one of my potential pastors, students who were so anxious to find a professional position to serve God would complain about having no church and no real ministry. I would always suggest, open a shelter for the homeless. You'll have your ministry in no time. Interestingly enough, I never did see any one of the students take me up on my suggestion, and perhaps even more interesting, my own ministry to the homeless eventually failed. Lost in government paperwork, political, neighborhood church jealousy, personal inability to sometimes deal with unexpected crises, of which there are many in ministry. The first book was an exciting thing to write, with anticipation of a sequel. But of course, that was in the prime of my ministerial success. Not long after the book was written, the ministry failed, at least by corporate business standards. Only God and I know of the individual success in ministering to people that took place, and the true success will be shown me in heaven. But by our modern standards, I was a near failure, and there was no sequel to the book. Then I decided to write a book that would answer some of the deeper theological questions about the problems of evil, entitled, Why Is This Happening to Me? After all, I have a degree in philosophy. Who would know better than myself how to share insight in dealing with the problems of life and how to get closer to God than myself? So I wrote it. Nobody read it. And after I looked it over again, I don't blame them. Feasibly, I'm being too hard on myself. The book was read, some royalties from time to time, and I still do, but very little. When I took time to really look it over, about 6 months after it had been published, I realized it was a very boring and even sometimes theologically incorrect kind of book. My views had changed. My perception of God was not the same, which is always changing any time. And worst of all, I was a very boring writer who believed I'd come across all the answers. Shows you how wrong I was. Finally, I wrote a book, more of a pamphlet, entitled Can We Save Our Children? From a major denomination, which included a video I made to explore and expose the problems of child abuse, a project I became very excited about. But after I finished the video production, the denomination took over the entire project. I have no idea to this day if my efforts were ever realized or utilized. I do have a copy of the video, and every 2 or 3 years I take it out and look at it again, contemplating that if I had the chance to do the same thing today, I would do it entirely different. Again, both my views and my perceptions have changed, and I can only hope for the better. To write these serious books and to try to make a mark on society, or maybe even just get rich from a publication, which is what we all hope for, it became a burden, and probably the greatest eye-opener for me was I really didn't have anything terribly exciting or even new to say. So I stopped writing. Well, that's not totally true. What I mean is, I stopped writing books. In my present position, I'm always writing curriculum, or developing letters, or making presentations, and those experiences keep me in the light of research and authorship. But the burden of a book and trying to instruct the world in things of God were set aside for personal development and counseling. Instead, my interest in writing and sharing the burden of the gospel with people lessened. I lift people across, understand the wonderful power of God's forgiveness, and reintroduced the golden rule, where I needed to
love my neighbor as I loved myself. That was my problem. I had not been loving myself, and my attention started to turn inward. My burden was no longer save the world through Christ. My burden was to get to know Christ better for my own sake. And suddenly a peace came over me that I have known ever since. It was at a time when I was enjoying this peace that the lack of responsibility in regards to saving the world that I was approached to consider writing a newspaper article for the local newspaper on a regular basis. I was already writing stuff for my radio program, but the freedom was in the effort that I could write whatever I wanted to and have it published. I still publish that newspaper article. It's called Keith's Comments, and you can find it in jacksonville.com. And the reality was the freedom to entertain with whatever came to mind. So when the offer for a newspaper column was presented to me, it came without deadlines or restrictions, and I have enjoyed it thoroughly. And I've been doing it for years. And in my book, I put some of them. I can only hope that you enjoy what I've written. I still feel the gospel is to the whole world. In this passage of time, I've come to understand that God can handle his own ministry. He doesn't have to rely on me. I can help. That's all I'll do is help. He doesn't need me to develop ministry or to save the world, but he does need me to love him. He wants a relationship with me, not a ministry that is successful or makes me famous or rich. Instead, I celebrate life in my wonderful relationship with him. And I enjoy each day in laughter, in love and forgiveness. I don't do everything right. I don't do everything wrong. And I lift myself up to him, and he forgives me. Let someone else do the ministry. Just let me write and sometimes talk to you.